All right, there we go. We are live.
We are live. Yeah.
So, hello everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hi.
Hola.
So before we get started, let's go to the comment section. Let us know in the comment where you are joining us from. We'll give it now 59 seconds and we jump straight into today's webinar. Just let us know where you're joining us from and let's build a momentum. Head over to the comment and let us know. Kenya, we have Kenya in the house. Kenya, okay. Nice. NYC. No, Netherlands. Uganda, India, okay.
Geneva, London.
London. I was asking.
Okay, I see it as well. Geneva, UK, India, Uganda.
Yeah, it's a complete global community right now. Ethiopia, Germany. That's where we're based, actually.
Bangladesh.
Okay,
All right,
great.
people. We're actually okay. Bangladesh. We're 2 minutes behind, so let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I would like to say a pleasant welcome to today's webinar on the carbon market playbook: how to launch, finance, and sell carbon projects. So we're going to make this a more interactive webinar where we have a live pool. You can answer questions that's going to pop up. At the end of this session, we do have a survey fund. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know, what do you think of this webinar? What do you think about the speaker? Would you like to have more of this conversation? So you have the survey to share all this information. Before I turn this over to Cedric, who's going to introduce all of the speakers by themselves, I want to say again, welcome. And now we get started with today's webinar. Over to you, Cedric.
Thanks, Jonathan. So I'm very pleased to be here today to have this webinar on Carbon Market Playbook. Very quick intro on my side. So my name is Cedric. I'm a founder of Terrava and also a partner at Human Planet. I will introduce after Terrava and Human Planet. We have today this very exciting panelists for the presentation on carbon projects. I will start with asking each of you to introduce yourselves, and after we will deep dive into the webinar. So I will start with Dinesh, if you could introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you so much, Cedric. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the participants from various countries. Glad to see you all. So I'm Dinesh. I'm the CEO and founder of Unmai Carbon Solutions based out of Singapore. So we are engaged in climate finance, carbon trading, carbon advisory, and carbon digital infrastructure. I've been in this field for close to 30 years, worked on various aspects, and currently focusing on the evolving Article 6 and the voluntary carbon market under the ICVCM. Glad to see you all, and I hope to interact with you very soon. Thank you, Cedric, again for the opportunity.
Thanks, Dinesh. Very glad to have you today. I will give the floor now to Shinu, if you could introduce yourself.
Hello, Cedric. Thanks. Hello, everyone. I'm Shinu Jose. I'm based now in India. And if I need to introduce myself, I'm a carbon originator and developer, close to being around 20 years in the field now. Worked on multiple projects in the nature-based solutions, which is mangroves, forestry, biochar in recent times, across geographies in Middle East and Mexico, the current project that we have in Africa, in Southeast Asia, extensively in Southeast Asia. So that is my. I'm open to more questions about nature-based projects and what are the pitfalls and what are the advantages of doing such projects. Or I've been working very closely on the field as well as with the investors. Thank you so much for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you so much, Shinu. So we have been working quite a few projects together. I'm very happy to have you today to discuss and take it further to share with the community. And last but not least, we have Graciela and Fernando, who are joining us from Mexico for the stories. They were on the field yesterday. We were actually in touch, visiting plantation, mangroves. So yeah, I will let you introduce yourself and we'll take it forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. Cedric. I am Fernando Suarez, co-founder and CEO of Camuban Green Capital. We are a climate investment platform, and she's Graciela Baez.
Hello.
Co-founder and COO of the company too. Thank you very much for the opportunity and for the invitations. We are excited to be here with you guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and thank you for waking up so early. So it's quite early in Mexico. Also for everyone, I think someone is joining from New York. So yeah, very happy to have you, both of you. So I think we can start. To disclose one thing, we have one thing in common on this panel, actually, is that we are all working on a very interesting, many interesting projects in Mexico that we will explain a bit at the end of the call. The idea of the webinar today is really to share to the audience. I think we have more than 150 people joining us today. The idea is to share, because we expect you to have different types of knowledge of carbon markets. So we will have a presentation to start with to really share the end-to-end knowledge about carbon projects. What are carbon projects? What are carbon markets? What are the trends? How we can monetize carbon credits? How we can fundraise? So this short presentation at the beginning will be really focused on this. We'll try to make it as much accessible as we can so that everyone can understand. And it might go a bit fast, so if you want to take some notes, feel free to do it. You will have the opportunity to ask questions after, and also to have consultations or meetings with us after the webinar. And after, we will move to some questions for the panelists that we have the privilege to have today. And we will actually also, during the Q&A session, highlight a bit the amazing projects that we have in Mexico these days. And I think it will be nice to see for the audience a real project which is actually getting launched and which is very successful. So we are happy to have you both, Graciela and Fer, today. So I will start with the quick presentation. As I mentioned, I'm partner at Human Planet, also founder of Terrava. Human Planet is actually a financial advisory firm. We are in impact finance, which means we bring private capital to projects and initiatives that deliver positive impact for the society and the environment. And also Terrava, which is a climate tech company in Singapore, developing and advising on carbon projects with a focus on digital monitoring and digital technology. So this webinar is jointly powered and presented by both Human Planet and Terrava. We will actually start with a quick poll for everyone to be able to answer. I think we will be able to see the poll live in 1 minute. Yeah, everyone should be able to see it. Yeah, perfect. So the question is, how familiar are you with carbon markets? For us, it's quite important to know if we can get very technical or if we need to focus on the basic to know the audience. So I will let everyone answer. And I will let Jonathan, do you have answers?
We have quite a good response. We have 43 people that responded, and it's still picking up.
Okay. And what is
25% is completely new to this topic. 20% they have heard about it before, and they need more information. 41% they know the basic, and 14% they work in carbon markets.
Okay, so it's like an equal split, actually. Okay, to make it more difficult. Okay, great. So we will do both. We'll keep it basic, but also get a bit on the technical and have it, so that everyone can learn. So I will start. The key points really is that we see when we work on projects, if you protect a forest or if you distribute stoves, how can you generate revenue? So this is really the day-to-day job for us when we meet with potential project developers, partners that who develop very interesting projects. The key point is financing, how they can finance, and how they can leverage the action and access to carbon markets. So we have the agenda today. We will describe a bit on carbon credits, the standards, the different types of projects, the trends in the market, how to register a project, how to sell carbon credits, and what are the common pitfalls and and how we can help as well. So you see, it's quite a dense agenda. I hope I won't be too fast. The session is recorded, and you can also ask questions if you have any questions. So for anyone who is new to carbon projects, a carbon project actually is an activity that can measurably reduce or remove greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere, and it can be verified by an independent third party, registered in a recognized standard. Actually, each of the terms here is very important, so we have to be able to measure. So you need to measure every year the emission reduction. You need to verify, so there will be an auditor who will verify that there is actually this is real, and you need to register somewhere, which means in an existing standard, which is globally recognized. So something measurable that can be verified and registered, that can be sold as well. This is really the key point, and to define the activity. Okay, so actually the core of the project is really the activity. And once you conduct the activity and your project is registered, you can issue carbon credits. One carbon credit is equal to 1 ton of CO2 avoided or removed from the atmosphere. This ton of carbon credits will be issued every year for sometimes up to 20, 21 years. And these carbon credits will be sold in the market. And where it becomes interesting is when you have a project which is actually registered and you know you will sell carbon credits for the next 15 years. This is when you can actually define and develop financing strategies because you have a cash flows in the future. If you get an offtake agreement with a buyer for the next 10 years, you have stable cash flows, so you can go to investors, to the banks, to fundraise. And you get into project financing. So this is which we will discuss also, and we will explain with the project in Mexico in a few minutes. In terms of some terms, that you need to know in the market today, the difference between avoidance and removal. Avoidance is actually that you develop an activity that avoid the emission of CO2, so it doesn't capture. So the typical example is renewable energy. If you develop a renewable energy plant, you actually avoid fuel consumption or gas consumption, but you don't capture or you don't remove the emissions. It's important because if you have a project in removal rather than avoidance, today the key trend is really around removal. Avoidance was a good trend in the last few years, but today it's really the focus is on removal. So you need to know if your project is avoidance or removal. Who can decide that a carbon credit is actually real? I mentioned standards. So to date, you have different types of standards, and that's why it's actually important to get advice because depending on the nature of the project, of the type of the project, also on the geography and the investor you want to get, you will have to choose different standards. If I'm not wrong, today Vera and Gold Standard, it's more than 80% of the carbon credits in the market. I see Shinu saying yes, so I didn't say anything too bad. Yes, but you have actually specific standards, the American Carbon Registry, Puro.earth, also for carbon removal, which is picking up for biochar, for instance. So it's really depending on the methodology and the buyers in the market will have specific request. Voluntary against compliance is also two key terms that you need to master. Voluntary is actually the buyer of the carbon credits will buy voluntarily. For instance, a corporate, like a big corporate will, like the tech companies today, the Microsoft, the Amazon and the others, they buy because voluntarily they want to report emission reductions. So this is a voluntary market, which has been around for some time. And today it's more and more emerging the compliance market under the Article 6 that we will discuss in a few minutes. And the compliance market is actually regulated under the UN. Also, you have a compliance market in Europe, which is the EU emission trading system. There is also for the aviation, the CORSIA system. So it's also good to know about the compliance market because today, if you look at what you hear in the market and from the buyers, having access to compliance markets is becoming more and more important, and this is where the trend is actually going. So again, voluntary versus compliance. And another keyword is around integrity. So there has been in the past some issues on several projects where it was not very easy to demonstrate the integrity of a project. So you had, articles from the newspapers going after specific projects, local communities who could complain about several developers. So there are four pillars of carbon project integrity. And today you need to demonstrate the integrity of a specific project. So one is additionality, that the carbon credits financing is actually needed in addition to the actual financing. So your project would not necessarily happen at that scale without carbon credits. No leakage, permanence is very important, which means how long the carbon stay stored for long term. And this is why carbon removal and long-term permanence is in higher demand, and also co-benefits. So co-benefits is also very important, is the impact, which is other than the additional to the emission reduction. So it can be impact on biodiversity, on local communities. If it's cook stoves, usually you have impact on women because they are the beneficiaries, close to the use of the cook stoves. So co-benefits is actually important because if you demonstrate high co-benefits, you can have a premium when you sell the carbon credits. So we have a second poll, and after I'll try to speed up, not take more than 5 minutes, so that we can move to the next one. So I will share the poll. Oh, Jonathan, can we share the poll, or should we ask in the chat?
Yes, let me launch that right now. There we go. It's live.
Okay, great. So the question is, what type of projects you are actually working on, interested? Is it forest and nature? Is it clean cooking and energy access? Is it soil and biochar, or is it renewable energy? Or maybe you are not sure, actually. So we'll let everyone reply. Jonathan, if you can say the percentage a bit.
Yes, the replies is really picking up. We have 34 as for now. So foreign nature, we have 39%, but it's still picking up. That means the number is increasing gradually. Clean cooking, we have 16%. Solar, we have 11%. Renewable energy, we have 14%. Not sure yet, we have 19%.
Okay. So again, it's like around 20 for each, between 15 and 20, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's quite diversified. It's surprising, actually. If you look at today, there is a lot of. So these are the key sectors. The one which is kind of picking up in what we see more and more in the project developers is actually nature-based solutions. Clean cooking and cook stoves have been around for quite some time, but it's also interesting in terms of under Article 6. And biochar is also picking up. So our recommendation, nature-based clean cooking and biochar actually some of the key projects, in the market. Renewable energy, in terms of additionality, and it's more avoidance. So you have other standards like IRX today, which can be sometimes developed. So I will try to speed up a bit. I will move to some of the projects. We will share the presentation as well as part of we have time to go through it. Quick one on the market trends. So the market in 2024 was around $1.6 billion. It's actually growing, and what we see is the emergence of Article 6 and the compliance market. So Article 6 is defined under the Paris Agreement. You have two, Article 6.2, Article 6.4. To date, you have more and more agreements between countries where countries can actually buy mitigation outcomes between each of them. And these are the types of carbon projects which are actually interesting if you get a letter of authorization from the government. And Article 6.4, which is actually a UN supervised carbon market body, which actually provides which supervises this second side of the Article 6. So we just mentioned here, happy to get more in details during the Q&A, but it's one of the key things. CORSIA also important because it's a scheme that is picking up in the aviation. And finally, the key role of digital monitoring. Digital monitoring is very important and more in demand. Some standards like Vera have actually are developing, slowly but surely, digital MRV frameworks as well, so that you can use it to get registered. And MRV means
Cedric, your
monitoring,
audio is
reporting, and
dropping.
verification. Sorry? Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, perfect. So yes, I will stop here. We'll share the presentation, and what I suggest now is stop sharing my screen and let's take it to the discussion. I will start with maybe with Dinesh, because you're actually an expert, and you have been in the carbon markets for quite some time, and you have seen the emergence of Article 6 and the combination between voluntary and compliance market. So the question is, when we cover actually voluntary and compliance markets, which are today two separate worlds, are you seeing them converge, and what it looks like for project developers on the ground, and what advice you would have for project developers?
Great. Thanks, Cedric. So as Cedric was mentioning about the two worlds, voluntary and compliance, yes, they are converging, but they doesn't mean that they are becoming a single market, though everybody's wishes to see that coming. But right now we are seeing efforts to make it more interoperable. This is the new word, but you will hear this quite frequently when this is happening in the carbon market, because the convergence between both the worlds is no longer theoretical. It has already emerged through policy design, infrastructure alignment, and the buyer behavior. So this is extremely important because there is a tangible shift across the governance, the asset design, the registry systems, and the transaction structures. So therefore, the same carbon project could now serve multiple end users. This wasn't before seen in this carbon market. For example, a project might issue a credit under a voluntary standard, but with the host country authorization, the same credits can also become eligible for compliance use. So it could be Article 6, or it could be CORSIA, or domestic schemes as practiced in South Africa, China, Thailand, etc. So therefore, any project under the voluntary market is no more simple voluntary offsets, that they can become now a policy-linked asset with different labels, depends on how they're authorized and used. So therefore, what we are seeing now is also the price differentiation in terms of how the prices are going to have a difference in terms of voluntary credit without the authorization and with the authorization. And with authorization, meaning the host country provides a letter of authorization and they will deduct the ITMOs from their account, and the buyer would then add it to their account. And therefore, the pricing is also trying to be different for voluntary and the compliance market. At the same time, we should also understand how this is going to happen on the infrastructure side, which Terava is also working on, where Unmai is also working along with Terava on this to make it happen, is that the registries are now in silos, but they cannot be working in isolated systems. And therefore, there should be a lot of interconnected layers linking project registries, the national registries, and the UNFCCC systems as well. And therefore, the registries, instead of just providing a tracking infrastructure, would then become a financial market infrastructure, not just accounting tools actually. And therefore, the project developers have to really structure the carbon asset across the market, across the regulations, and across the infrastructure layer. So just to sum up, it is that the kind of convergence is happening as we see, and therefore any project developer listening to this webinar have to be very clear in terms of designing for authorization if you really want to command a price premium, and if your technology is already in the priority list or the positive list by the country, so that you don't lose the risk of being locked out of higher value markets. Second, you have to build the flexibility so that your project should be able to serve both the markets based on what is happening in the policy and regulations arena. And the third one, you have to upgrade your digital MRV, which again Cedric emphasized, and therefore you become compliance grade market eligible, so that the demand will also have an audit level transparency. So in short, Cedric, I would say we are moving from a developer-driven voluntary market to a more sovereign influenced multi-market ecosystem. And that is good for all the markets to shape up and be aligned with the country's nationally determined contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dinesh. It's very, very interesting. And I see we get a few questions, while you were speaking. I think it's a key topic also for project developers. Also because Article 6, it's something which is evolving, and depending on the country where you develop your project, it's actually sometimes a bit difficult to know if your country is ahead, what is actually the regulation in the country. So if I could ask you it's a difficult exercise actually, to give a kind of a broad landscape on where things are today, in terms of regions, countries, which one, are advanced. We hear sometimes MOUs between countries, some countries more advanced, some transactions already happening. So if you could just take us a bit around the world and let us know and describe how things are moving actually for Article 6.
Sure. I think Article 6 is indeed moving very fast, I would say, but the notion of readiness is often misunderstood. I would say, unfortunately, it is not about the bilateral agreements or about the MOUs being signed between two countries, but is the ability of both the countries to actually provide the authorization, actually to establish the steering committee or the joint committee, actually to track and account for the international transfers without any integrity risk or the double counting risk. And therefore, you have already seen in the market for the newcomers to this webinar, there are many countries who have gone ahead, and there is a classification of host country, which is selling the carbon credits, and there is a classification of buying countries who are buying these carbon credits. And in terms of the developed countries who are buying these credits include Japan, Switzerland, Singapore, South Korea, and many other countries in the pipeline like Norway, Sweden, etc. So I'm just listing the top or the popular countries who are already implemented the agreements and also operationalized the bilateral pipelines, developed new methodologies. Japan has developed almost close to 150 to 200 methodologies for 29 countries so far, and they've done a tremendous job in terms of technology transfer and scaling the ambition of climate ambition, in terms of scaling the climate ambition. In terms of Switzerland also, they have executed multiple Article 6.2 agreements with clear corresponding adjustment frameworks as well. Singapore, again, is also topping up, as I mentioned to you earlier, on the registry aspect of it. They are working a lot on the governance aspect and also on the bilateral. So there are many examples. It's not just a theoretical aspect of Article 6 becoming operational. And therefore, the countries, they don't just show the interest. They also get into the transaction authorization and the building infrastructure. But having said that, as Cedric said, it varies across the world in terms of how do you define readiness in your own country. So do they have a clear institutional authority? Do they have a kind of an Article 6 operationalization framework? Do they have a legal aspects of whether they have announced Article 6 under the climate law or any other environmental law within your country? So that is very important to see whether there is a top-down policy and the regulatory environment being already declared operational. That is the first thing first. The second one is the infrastructure, the National Carbon Registry and the National MRV, and how they are integrated so that the accounting becomes seamless for the developing country to sell their ITMOs or the Article 6 credits. Then the last thing is about how you integrate your nationally determined contribution and then have your own strategy until you become net zero. So many of the countries have declared 2050. India, China is 2060 and 2070. And therefore, there is a kind of a pathway towards achieving the net zero. And therefore, the NDC changes every 5 years. So therefore, that is the overall kind of a readiness. I'm just putting it in a short form, not to elaborate it further, that all this aspect constitute the readiness so that you can see the country is going to give you the transaction experience and also enable to build the pipeline where your project would kind of feature. So therefore, what happens is that this is a kind of a fragmented institutional mandates is not going to work anymore. And countries who don't have a registry or an unclear data accounting system is going to lag behind. And countries who are not willing to really implement the NDC, which is conditional or unconditional, then there is going to be a friction in terms of how they're going to approve the projects. And therefore, it is going to really affect the transaction pipeline. So Cedric, I would say as a closing kind of a line, that it is not about having a policy or a regulation. It is about having a system which is operational that can authorize, account, and transact with integrity. And today, unfortunately, we have very few or a handful of countries who are extremely ready to operationalize. But having said that, I'm fully hopeful that there'll be many more countries who fall in the line to become Article 6 ready. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dinesh. No, it's very interesting, and also every time we discuss, I get insights that we can't find on the web, or it's very interesting to the knowledge that you have around everything which is moving within countries, between countries. It's very interesting for the audience as well, I'm sure. Now we will move a bit from Article 6, and I will turn to Shinu to discuss a bit more on nature-based projects. For the story, Shinu and me, we have actually worked on projects. So I know that Shinu knows nature-based projects, what it takes to develop, to be on the ground. We have been in Laos before, in very remote areas. It's not easy to develop nature projects. And so I have a question actually for you, Shinu, to start with, is because I saw in the audience around 20% into nature-based solutions. So I think first question, when we have a nature-based solution project that we want to develop, what are the first steps, the third key steps, that someone should take to explore to know if it qualifies, and what are the good practice when we start a nature-based project, which is probably the most complex projects to develop today. You're on mute, Shinu. Yeah, you need to unmute. Yeah.
Thanks, Cedric. Very
Thanks.
pertinent question. Thank you for asking it, upfront. So when we, just as a matter of introduction, for those who are just coming into the carbon field and they don't understand what nature-based project means, so we are referring to projects which are either forest conservation or restoration on one side, agroforestry, soil-based projects. soil regeneration and conservation projects, going to blue carbon, where we encounter mangroves, again, restoration and conservation, and other peripheral blue carbon projects like seagrass, for example, and coral restoration. And all these projects, as a bundle, we call them as nature-based. So coming to your question, um, so the first thing is we are talking about a land parcel here. So a person, a project developer, has a land parcel, which can be a forest, which can be a degraded one, uh, which can be a mangrove area, which can be of any of these types I mentioned. So the first thing that we look at is normally a project developer looks at, what is the potential. Now we know that there is a lot of demand for nature-based credits. That means the credits are going at high price premium. So the natural question that everyone will have is, what is my credit worth? My simple question is, don't start with the credits. Let's start with the land itself. Your land has to have certain things ready in order to be pursued as a nature-based carbon project. One, we have to be very clear about who is owning and controlling the land. So where are the carbon rights? Who are the guys who are, the stakeholders on that land first? Second, are the land tenures very clear, or are there disputes or overlaps and things like that? So you have to be clear on that. Thirdly, most importantly, what is the status of this land? What has been happening with this land? Whether it has been degrading due to anthropogenic pressures, the human-induced pressures, whether it has been restoring by itself, whether there's not been much change, and whether it's something that we are hoping that it will deteriorate in the future, so we have to intervene. So, and the fourth part is, how can you back up all these assessments with, previous data, like 5 years, 10 years data, to understand the land use maps, what has been happening and what has been changing. So the first thing to answer your question is not to look at the credits per se, but look at your land and to understand the ownership and what has been happening with the land. So this is how we look into it.
Thanks, and if we deep dive a bit more for the ones who are developing nature-based solutions, so land is a priority, and nature-based solutions is actually quite complex, and you have several types of crops, several type of projects. So if you would have to list, the kind of projects which are, of interest in the market today, or where you think there is the biggest potential, I would be interested to, for you to share with the audience, what type of projects, if someone has access to land and they can develop several types of projects, in which direction they should go.
Right. So if we categorize nature-based projects as, let's say, forest conservation, something we call as RED plus, right? Or RED, REDD. So that is one type. So there's another type which is restoration. There's a third type, which is blue carbon. If you categorize these three, projects into these three, on a base case, and then the best project I would say would be, from whatever has been happening in recent times, it would be a mangrove project for sure, because that commands the highest price. Having said that, mangrove areas are, just spread across the world, but it's quite limited in some areas. So it's a challenge always. It's not that readily, easily available to actually develop carbon projects for many reasons, right? It can be additionality issues. It can be many other issues. For example, I worked on a project in Saudi Arabia for an oil company there. And the reason for that project was the mangroves were destroyed because of oil spill, which had happened during the Gulf War in the 90s. I'm referring this because we are currently in that situation, right? Now, there has been efforts across that Persian Gulf region. Oh, sorry, if somebody doesn't, from Saudi Arabia may not like Persian Gulf, so Arabian Gulf, however you call it. So there's been so much of restoration efforts in that region. But think about it. What will happen once the war ends and then we take stock of the ecological damage that has happened? Now, that's the huge risks we are playing with. Now, for example, let's say what I'm trying to say is mangroves, yes, a premium, but yes, the risk factor is much higher depending on the region you're working with. May not be the same for, let's say, Mexico, or may not be the same for India. But the region I'm talking about is quite different. Having said that, There have been recent instances in projects in Africa where agroforestry projects have demanded a premium as well. I know of one case which has actually got somewhere around the range of $45 a piece carbon credit, which is one of the highest that we have heard in recent times, which is very good. So it doesn't, so it reflects on something, right? So it's not just about the project type. It's about how good and how good quality the project is. It's more.
Great. Thank you so much, Shinu. Yeah, very interesting. And yeah, it's true that when we develop projects over like 20 years, it's very difficult. It's a bit like we hear quite a lot like nature-based solutions as a new infrastructure asset class. So it's a bit the same approach we have when we finance infrastructure projects. When you finance for 20 years, you don't know what will, even governments,
It's
what will
40
happen.
years, right? In 40 years
It's
and
even
beyond
more.
these days. Yeah.
True. Great. Thank you so much. Very interesting. We will move because I'm also conscious of the time to our friends in Graciela and Fernando in Mexico. And for the story, I realized that when we did the technical test at the beginning, your background was actually dark. So I think the sun is now up. It's not too early anymore. So thank you again for having joined us early. I think so the idea now is to deep dive a bit more on the very interesting projects and initiatives that you have. And after we will open up also to Q&A. Jonathan, if you can lead this part, it would be great.
Absolutely.
Great. So I will share the presentation. We might actually
So it's
a
Glacia.
bit more than 1 hour, just for the audience, maybe by 5 minutes, but let's take time to go through the initiative first. So the floor is yours, Fer and Graciela.
Thank you very much, Cedric. Thank you very much to everybody. Again, I'm Fernando Suarez, and it's always better to have a pretty face for a presentation. And she's not only a pretty face, she's also smarter than me. So, Graciela, please.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Let's start from who we are. Who are we? Camuban is a climate investment platform focused on developing large-scale, nature-based, and engineered carbon solutions across Latin America. Our core philosophy is very simple, where investment meets purpose. We design projects that are not only environmentally robust, but also financially scalable and socially transformative, because we believe climate solutions must work simultaneously for ecosystems, communities, and capital markets. Next one, please. On the ground?
No, our project.
Sorry,
our project is located on the Pacific coast of Chiapas, Mexico, where we are right now, actually. And on the ground, this means working across more than 100,000 hectares of tropical forest and 25,000 hectares of mangroves in collaboration with local agrarian communities.
Chiapas is one of the most biodiverse, ecological critical region in Latin America, and very important to mention also, one of the poorest areas in the country, in Mexico. So our project has integrated 3 key components. The next one, please. Which is RED Plus, forest conservation, mangrove restoration with local agrarian communities, and biochar productions from agricultural residues. This is especially for banana and mango.
Individually, these 3 solutions are powerful, but integrated, they create a climate platform. But what makes this project different is not just the scale, it's the integration of systems. Next, Cedric. Thank you.
So our biggest challenge wasn't technical. We have a strong engineering and environmental expertise. It was not regulatory either, although that is complex. The real challenge is align long-term climate goals, community expectations, institutional requirements, and investor timelines, especially in a region like Chiapas, where land tenure is communal. We have here the ejidos. And trust is built over the time, not through contracts. So it is very important to work with these communities for many, many years before we can create a project.
No, it's important because what nobody tells you about the climate project, they are not just environmental and financial, they are deeply human systems. Next one, Cedric, please. No?
No.
Working in Chiapas means working with indigenous and local communities. I'm sorry, I'm the next one. Financial early stage of carbon credits is indeed one of the most difficult part of the project because investors do not fund ideas; they fund credibility and structure. So working in Chiapas means working with indigenous and local communities, and that is the heart of everything we do. Thank you.
So here, the communities are not beneficiaries. The communities are partners. It's important to mention that about the 50% of the profits of the projects are going to the communities in cash and also in social programs. So we have experts working with the communities in social programs, and we listen first what the communities needs. It's not only about the environmental help, it's about what are their needs, and sometimes it's wood, sometimes it's food, sometimes it's
what kind of infrastructure. You have to know their priorities, because this is crucial, because if the community doesn't believe in the project doesn't exist at all.
The next one.
Next one, please, Cedric.
So what we are doing differently in this project is that we're combining different expertise and doing a strong financial structure based on a trust in the US and a trust in Mexico, which gives legal certification to all the stakeholders. The next one.
No, yes, lo último.
No, la siguiente. Please. So
at Camuban, we believe the climate action scale requires more than good intentions. It requires a structure, trust, and alignment. And that's exactly where we are building.
Great. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. And yeah, I know it's not easy to present that too, so it was very in sync. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's great. And also,
Good.
yeah, the project is very, very interesting. I was actually in the with you on the ground to see the impact. It's great. One question. So we have quite a few questions actually in the chat, but I will ask you maybe Graciela and Fer one question first before we move to the audience. If you could share a bit more, because I think what is interesting in your case. So one, as you mentioned, there are several projects that you aggregate into one financing structure so that you can diversify the risk. And maybe if you could share, I mean, on my side, I was very pleased to see the traction with investors because it's going quite fast. We already have commitment of several millions of dollars for the project and more investors. So maybe if you could share a bit, what was your approach to investors? And the way I saw it is that you had actually kind of a commercial approach. So you don't pitch investors to share like only the good for the climate, but also you share, this investment opportunity as a business case, right? So if you could share a bit more on this front, like how it, how you initiated your discussion with the investors, what was your kind of pitch, and what was the feedback you get from investors and how it goes. I think it would be useful for the audience.
Yeah, thanks, Cedric. It's important what you are saying because obviously there are a lot of kind of investors, mostly here in Latin America. They are not very related with environmental projects, and they don't know very well how much profit or how much profitable can be a carbon credit projects and everything. That's why we start. First of all, we need to give certainty to the investment with this financial structure, which is a trust in USA that allows all the assets, the climate assets we are creating. And the other trust is the operational trust in Mexico to give certainty also to the communities, to the landlords, and all the people that are involved on the project, And then, as you said, to the investors, you have to explain them how the climate or how the carbon credits works. And they start loving about have more than one project, which these are three different projects, and we are involving three different markets and three different times, because Red Plus run in a specific market, also mangrove and biochar. So they start loving they can have the recovery of their invest from three different carbon markets, And first of all, and then they want to feel safe and comfortable on the financial platform. That's why we set up the trust in USA to allow the assets and the investment. And the trust operate, let's say, or the waterfall comes from the trust,
Yeah. No, thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, I think it's very interesting that you, as I mentioned, this is really you have an investor approach and a commercial or business approach to climate assets as a portfolio, which is very interesting. And again, congrats on all the good news we hear on about the in project. And yeah, it's great to see the momentum.
Yeah.
So we have a few questions actually I saw one or two from the audience. I think I will start with the first one with you, Dinesh. I think it might be maybe best for you. It's around buyers and how we find buyers for a project, and how does fragility of context affect opportunity. We have a project like in Iraq about solarization of schools. Obviously, lots of co-benefits, but the internal country market is not, carbon market is not yet defined. So actually, the question is like, how do you attract buyers or investors in this fragile context where the carbon market is not fully, it's not mature yet, and there is a fragile setting?
Yeah, indeed. I think a part of the answer is in the question itself. So the in-country readiness is extremely important if you want to really build a carbon market in the international arena. Largely because of the country risk, the buyers will have a huge concern in terms of investing or signing any procurement agreement for the carbon credits to be procured from that particular country, which is perceived as a high risk country due to various reasons. And the in-country readiness, as I mentioned during one of my response to you, Cedric, it also defines how ready the country is in terms of kind of allowing the promoters to sell the ITMOs outside the country. So that is on the international market. In terms of the particular question, we recently saw the Iraq's announcement as the launch of the national carbon market at the COP, and we feel strong that they would have a regional and international carbon markets integration soon. But I think it's a very early operational stage, I would say. But in terms of the project's pipeline, I could understand the gas flaring reduction is a very high potential, similar to Bangladesh, the renewable energy expansion, the afforestation, land restoration projects, and even the CCUS projects also would be carbon capture and utilization and storage. So all this potential is there within the country, but the voluntary carbon market is not going to be that suitable given the current situation. And therefore, we have to unfortunately see and wait how the country is going to mature itself in terms of its readiness and then put itself in the international map so that it brings more confidence for the buyers to come and procure. So therefore, it's very easy to find the list of buyers. Absolutely no problem. We can simply see in the public domain who are the major buyers in the market. But it is more important that the in-country readiness, in-country project preparation, in-country risk assessment profiles are suitable for presenting the project for the investments to the buyers. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dinesh. Very interesting. And we have actually also one more question for Shinu, this one from Tim. Thank you, Shinu, for the presentation. So what exactly are, in your opinion, the success factors for a project with good quality?
Yeah.
I think
So I saw the question. Yeah. So it's something that needs to be addressed. So when we call a carbon project of one with good quality, that means if you remember, recollect this one of the slides, that 4-pillar slides that Cedric had mentioned. I think that is where so we need to look into in terms of where this project stands. So let me just recollect, for everyone's benefit. So one or two terms that were very important in that. So one was about permanence, right? So the project now, let's say, particularly for any nature-based project, a project has to have a permanence level. So it should not happen that the project will not sustain itself after 20 years for whatever reasons, anthropogenic or nature-based or natural reasons. So it has to be very clear. Now we are developing, at least the carbon market is developing another narrative, because we know we cannot be sure for 100 years. In case of any land-based project. So we can call it durable carbon credits, right? So that's another terminology that people are veering towards. So at least permanence or durability is one factor. Second important thing in that was additionality. Now, when a person has a land parcel and feels that he has a carbon project in it, it may not necessarily qualify as a carbon project in the first place. So it needs to be additional. So what do you mean by additionality? As Cedric had mentioned earlier, so the project should not happen or will not happen in any way without finance coming in from the carbon buyers. Without carbon finance, the project cannot happen. And that means this is a simple statement, but it has various layers of meanings in it. That means if there are supporting systems by the governments or some other multilateral agencies on a certain area, for example, there is a World Bank backed project in a certain area where you hold land, then it becomes very difficult for your project to establish that additionality, because there is no need. The project will sustain itself, or maybe there are certain reasons where the project would have sustained even without the carbon finance. For example, some biochar projects will have to go through that grind to see whether that is. When you look at quality, all this. And the last one, and the most important in my view, is the co-benefits, particularly for a nature-based project. So the better and the more quality and more impact in terms of SDGs that we provide through the project is going to be the yardstick of quality for that project. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Shinu. I think we are arriving at time actually. Thank you everyone for having joined. I hope this was useful for the community and the audience. I will ask Jonathan if you can share. So we will share a link in the chat for which is a Calendly link. If you want to have to book a consultation or to share a bit more about your project or you need advice, you can use this link. And during the session, we will also connect you with the speakers. If needed. Happy to to discuss further with anyone who is looking for developing more projects. And thank you again, everyone, for having joined. From the audience, for the speakers, it was very interesting session. And I think we can close it here and have a good day, everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.